Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So, welcome back to this online session on the physical form of physics 2. So, we have completed the syllabus as far as now is concerned. So, another 2-3 classes to proceed further. So, I asked yesterday, I have sent a mail to all of you to suggest some topics if you want to make it a revisions and some topics if you not understand. But unfortunately, I didn't receive much things from your side that you need any revisions kind of thing. There are very few people which have asked, a common thing is that there are few classes, maybe hardly 3 to 4 classes. People have missed during the UFES time. So hardly around 3 or 4 classes they have been missed. Almost 50% have missed those classes. I could remember. So this is one of the good ideas. So next 2-3 days, I'm happy to readdress those classes which you have missed. So these classes are, these classes are two things you have missed in these classes. One is the emulsions chapter. So most of the people, the beginning from the emulsions, you were not aware there, and also the rheology, few topics in the rheology also have missed. So next 2-3 classes, I will try to readdress and recall the classes once again back to you. And thank you for suggesting these revisions. So let us start with the topic. So the emulsions comes under the chapter name called coarse dispersions, because usually the size of these emulsions are suspensions in the range of greater than 500 nanometers, greater than 500 nanometers, or greater than 500 nanometers, or 0.5 microns. So greater than 0.5 microns. So based upon the size, if you could recall back, the dispersions has been classified into true solutions, colloids, and cores. True solutions having the size of less than 1 nanometer, colloids having the size of 1 to 500 nanometers, and coarse dispersions having the size of 500 to and above 500 nanometers. So coarse dispersions again are of two types. Not again in the there is no classification, any rationale behind the classification. Based upon the examples, the coarse dispersions has been classified into two types. One is the suspensions, another one is the emulsions. The suspension chapter you are already seen for the first sessional examination. We have finished about that. And in the emulsions, I said will be there in the second sessional examination. And yesterday, if you could recall back, we are discussing about the theories of emulsification, right? So the remaining topics, as it was mentioned before, many of the people have not attended to these classes. We will just recall back these classes once again in a glance. So these are the terminology which we are using for either suspension and emulsion. If it is internal phase, the various terminologies can be used like internal phase, dispersed phase, continuous phase, insoluble phase, or insoluble solid. If it is external media or the solvent, we can call as external phase, dispersed phase, continuous media, and liquid media. So these are basically the surfactant, how it, so the emulsions, how it looks when you see in a microscope. You can see different sizes of oil globules and different sizes of the water globules. This is how the the image of a microscope, exactly how the emulsion looks like. The oil globules or the water globules that has been dispersed in the media. And these are some of the daily routine examples which are seeing in the daily to daily activities, like the lotions or the creams which are using are the basic examples of oil in water. They are not the water and oil. They are not oil and water type of examples. The cod liver oil emulsion is one of the best example for the water and oil kind of emulsion. And all the paints which are using these days are nothing but the emulsions. These are the day-to-day examples which you are seeing for the emulsions. So coming to the definition, emulsions are defined as a thermodynamically unstable systems. So before writing this, everybody could write for a suspension emulsion. The common definition is these are the biphasic drug delivery systems, which consists of two phases. In the suspension, the two phases are nothing but one is an insoluble solid and another one is a solvent. In the case of suspension, in the case of emulsions, both are liquids only, but however, one phase will not going to be miscible with the another phase. That is the only difference. The additional tile you can add for the emulsions definition is they're basically thermodynamically unstable, but this is not applicable to the suspensions. Because why they're thermodynamically unstable is you could see the example of a coconut oil which you're using in the homes. If you take the same coconut oil and the wood, you could see in a solid structure. But the same thing when you take the average temperature of 30 and above, you can see in a liquid. So in a matter of few degrees of changes in the temperature, you could see the changes in the state of the matter of the oils. So usually what happens is these oils become more and more and thin when you're increasing the temperature. They become more and more and thick when you're decreasing the temperature. So that is a problem. So in that kinds of scenarios, they're highly thermodynamically stable, which means when you prepare an emulsion, you should be stored in the refrigerator conditions or the room conditions constantly. Let us say today I have prepared an emulsion in the lab and it is stable at 25 degrees centigrade. So you have to transport that in a refrigerator. Once it has been reached to the pharmaceutical shops, it should be stored at the refrigerator conditions or the temperatures which is prescribed. You cannot use this as such. Even when you purchase it also, these emulsions you could have see that back, the cod liver emulsion and all, they used to say keep in a cool place, right? So the reason behind is if you have temperature fluctuations, the emulsion is going to be unstable. So unstable in the sense they're going to be come back to the original position. What is the original position? Oil and water is going to be separated into two layers. So what is the applications or the merits of the emulsions is it masks the unpleasant taste. So let us say cod liver oil emulsion, if you take it having a blunt taste or unacceptable odor. So what they will do is they will mix some kind of flavoring agents into the water. So when you're taking it, this unpleasant taste will be masked by the flavoring agents which is present in the bottle. And also they're economical because as you know, oils are how economical it is. All this naturally available oils, they're not going to be costing us many more. So these kind of formulations are very economical. So improved bioavailability, since they are already in the coat size, which is around 500 nanometers, the lesser the size, the more the absorption will be. The more the absorption, the more the bioavailability, the more the bioavailability, the more the therapeutic index. Also, these emulsions can be used as sustained release medications. So let us say when you are having an oil and water emulsion or water and oil emulsion, whatever it is, when you load some drug here, when you load some drug inside here, let us say some oil soluble drug, what happens is this drug, when it goes to the stomach or GIT, this oil globule, slowly the drug will be releasing from the oil globule rather than like bursting at a time. They will not burst. This globule will get absorbed from the stomach. From the globule, slowly the drug is going to be released into the bloodstream. So the sustain means prolonged action, long action. A paracetamol is the best example for the immediate action, and anti-asthmatic drugs are the best example for the sustained action because they require longer time to produce some kind of the therapeutic action. And also nutrient supplement. Nutrients are nothing but the vital, important micronutrients or macronutrients, which is necessary for the body day-to-day regular activities or improving the diseased conditions of the human beings or whatever it is. So basically, there are many oils are like contains very very rich in vitamin A, D, E, K, all those things. So when you take these oils, which is already rich with the micro and macronutrients, it is act as a nutrient supplement. Example is a cod liver oil emulsion. So what is the demerits? So what is the demerits is, as I'm mentioning many times, if you consider the shelf life, what is the shelf life which you have shown the drug stability? The time at which it retains 90% of its drug content. But if you take the emulsions, they're having very less short life because either they're completely unstable, they're going to get back with the separation of oil and water, or these oils will go for rancidity kind of problems. Otherwise, this water present in the emulsions will go it for the microbial contamination. So all these liquid doses are usually having the less shelf half-life. Usually, I think it's not be more than 1 or 2 years. Unlikely the tablet, sometimes you could see there are like 3 to 4 years, right? But when it comes to the liquid doses like this, usually they are shorter shelf life for expiry. And as usual, as we are mentioning before, they are highly unstable and insoluble phase started separately slowly if is a little variation in the temperature changes. So these are the main applications and the demerits when you are using an emulsions. Classification of emulsions. So based upon the nature of dispersed phase is nothing but internal phase. If the internal phase is an oil, that is called as oil in water. Always remember the first word is a minute concentration. The next word is a maximum concentration. This is the internal phase and this is the external phase. So internal phase will be always written by the beginning and external phase at the back. So if you take oil and water emulsion, oil will be the globule, water will be the dispersed phase. And the opposite or vice versa. Water and oil emulsion, if you take, you could see the blue color is the internal phase here. The external phase oil, which is yellow color, is the dispersed media. So the same thing was written here. The specific phase is oil, the continuous phase is water. Examples are benzyl emulsions, or liquid paraffin water emulsions, etc. Similarly, here the example is butter. So usually the water and emulsions are very rare, and especially in the pharmaceutical also it is very rare. You can see like externally, like as shown before, like lotions or creams or butters like this. They're the best examples of water and oil emulsions where water content is very less. Also, apart from these two classifications, there are other few classifications based upon the size. So until now, we are saying the emulsion is around 0.25, so 0.5 microns or 500 nanometers above. You could see here, fine emulsions are up to 2.25 microns, which is nothing but 250 nanometers. So if you could reduce the size beyond below 500 nanometers, those are called as fine emulsions. If it is around 250 nanometers, those are called as fine emulsions. If it is around 10 to 100 nanometers, those are called as micro. This is the least possible size. So until now, this dispersion systems has been classified based upon the size. So until the last decade, what happens is these emulsions are like macro only. They usually like above 1 micron, 2 micron and all. So these days, there are a lot of technologies like you have studied in the pharmaceutical engineering, homogenization process, or many other techniques have been came to reduce further the size of the emulsion to improve more the bioavailability of other applications of the emulsions. So if it is around 250 nanometers, this is called as fine emulsions, or these are called as macro emulsions if it is around 100 nanometers. So apart from this classification, there is the last one is called as multiple emulsions, which are very rare, and it is very rare in the application because the general oil and water and oil emulsions are suffering with a lot of stability issues. But if you make multiple emulsions like oil and water and oil water, it is having more and more stability problems than that of a regular emulsions. So these are like theoretically we can discuss, but basically this kind of emulsions may not exist in the real scenarios. So you could see here there are again two types based upon the starting. You can see the starting is here. That's why you can see the small round here is a water, followed by oil, followed by water. So starting from water, followed by the oil, then again it was immersed in the water. So similarly here, oil and water emulsion first. This emulsion again has been dispersed in the oil. So this is called oil and water emulsions, and the vice versa it is. So basically emulsions are classified into three different categories. First is the dispersed phase, oil and water and oil. Next classification is based upon the size, that is fine emulsions or micro emulsions, and the last classification is multiple emulsions. So classification of emulsification systems. This already has seen in the practical called determination of HLB value during the physical pharmaceutics one. For the identification of HLB value of a surfactant like polysorbate 80, sodium lauryl sulfate, you have did it. There itself you have seen completely this HLB scale depending upon the water solubility nature of the suspending agents. Sorry, the polymers. Sorry, the surfactants. So surfactants having two kinds of parts. One is the hydrophilic head and another one is the lipophilic tail. So this hydrophilic head and lipophilic tail will not be at exactly equal ratio. That is, it is not like 50:50. They are not exactly like a 50:50 ratio. The head and weight, the head and tail ratio will not be like exactly 50:50. Sometimes the head weight is more. That means the functional groups, the hydrophilic functional groups are more. Sometimes the lipophilic functional groups are more. So what is the weightage? So based upon this, they have classified the emulsifying agents into different varieties. Let us say hydrophilic surfactants having more hydrophilic head group, they'll solubilize more in the water. Since they solubilize more in the water, they can be used in the oil and water kind of emulsions. Why? Because in oil and water kind of emulsions, the water is a major phase, right? If a surfactant is hydrophilic surfactants, it is having more solubility in water. So that is the reason this kind of surfactants will be used in oil and water. And also the vice versa. If it is a surfactant which is having more lipophilic tail, these are called as lipophilic surfactant, lipid soluble surfactants. There we can use in the kinds of water and oil emulsions, because here the major phase is a oil. Since that is a lipophilic, it is more soluble in the oil, and so on. So like this, based upon this, the Bancroft, the scientist, the Bancroft has defined this surfactant relationship based upon the hydrophilic or lipophilic heads they have, are nothing but the preferential solubility. That means preferential solubility is nothing but which kind of solvent they are going to solve, whether it is a water or oil. Depending on the solubility, you have been defined this. Once again, in order of studying this classification emulsion, if you could able to write the HLB value which you are already studied in the surface and artificial phenomena, that is going to be enough. Once again, they have described here the HLB value only, nothing else in NU has been described here. So the coming to the theories of emulsification, just yesterday we are saying there are three theories: is monomolecular, multimolecular, and the solid particle absorption. So just I'm skipping these slides. Okay. The next is the formulation of emulsions. So please don't confuse. You can see like all terms are like related to same. Theories of emulsification we are talking about only emulsion formation only. Formulation of emulsions also talking about once again how to prepare an emulsion. So if you write one answer to the another, there is you are going to get lose many marks, because especially this is an essay question. You try to understand the question. Theories means they are asking the mechanism only. You don't want to write any stories. They're asking the science why the emulsion is formed. But in case of formulation of emulsions, it is a general question. How we are preparing an emulsion, how we are formulating an emulsion, right? So in that case, the answer will be different. In the previous case, the answer is another thing. So please read the question 2 to 3 times, then only try to answer it. Maybe they can ask preparation of emulsions, otherwise preparation methods of emulsions, whatever it is, you have to write this answer. So before knowing the preparation of emulsions, you should know what is the components of the emulsion. So the emulsions basically contains an emulsifier, just now we are saying the emulsifying agent, which makes, otherwise which reduce the interfacial tension between the two immiscible liquids. What are the two immiscible liquids? The aqueous phase and the oil phase. Apart from this, what you are adding is the additives or excipients. Usually the excipients are antioxidants, because oils are more prone to the rancidity. Rancidity will be prevented. Rancidity is nothing but oxidation of oils. The oxidation of oils can be prevented by the antioxidants. Since water is there, microbes is there. Microbes is there, you have to add preservatives. Microbes is there, you have to add preservatives. Apart from this, humectants. Usually in creams and ointments, we used to add this humectants. Humectants are the agents, like I say, example is a glycerol, which will reduce the otherwise which will prevents the loss. Let us say you have prepared emulsion, if you put it on the skin, it will just like that, it will fall down, right? You require some kind of base or carrier to retain its the chemical, the oil globule in the skin, on the skin. That is one of the applications. Second thing is, after some time, if when you add an emulsion, it is going to be dried. See, whenever you want a good kind of therapeutic activity, that area should be wet. That is the respiration or the evaporation of the sweat or moisture from the skin should be prevented. In that case, humectants will do this job. Similarly, the flavoring and the sweeteners, we usually add it to improve the the complaints to the patients, like improving the taste or improving the flavor. So they have more patient complaints, especially the pediatric and geriatric concern, and they don't want to take this better agents as such as the better emulsions. In that case, this too is going to be helped more. Once again, they gave here nothing to be read. The oil phase, external emulsions will be the internal emulsions will be the, what is examples of oils we can be also they given. They given the properties usually the general stories, like the desired physical properties of the emulsion, like proper viscosity should be there, the solubility of the drug, selection of oil phase, let us say they're talking about. So the drug which you're using, it should be solubilized in the water, and the desirable consistency should not be like too viscous, it should not be like too less viscous, to have a good retention over the skin if it is a topical. For the case of aqueous phase, most of the time the water is used as an vehicle. Sometimes to improve the organoleptic, means the taste, the smell, all these properties called organoleptic. So the features which can be recognized by the organoleptic features or the emulsions can be improved by adding either the tasting agents such as sweeteners, otherwise the smelling agents such as flavoring agents. Further, apart from this, as we discussed, electrolytes and preservatives also will be added to further improve the quality or the acceptability of the emulsions. So selection of emulsifying agent depending upon the HLB value, no doubt talking about. Only thing, one point you have to remember is, there are emulsions which is used as a topical or oral. Let us say Cod emulsion is for oral purpose, or this emulsions which is seen like lotions or creams for the topical purpose, that is called external. So both of the time you are using a surfactant. Remember, sorry, whenever a surfactant terms comes into the mind, they are highly toxic. So why they're toxic? Those are the only agents which is having charge. Sir, where is the charge? We are classifying the emulsifying agents or the surfactants into cationic, anionic, or non-anionic, if you could remember. So when you're saying a cationic or anionic, means they're having some charge on the head. This charge, when it comes with the contact with the internal cells, the cell or the tissue structures, the cell also basically a charged body, which is a negatively charged body, right? Let us say prepared a cationic, prepared emulsion with a cationic surfactant. Now the surfactant will come and bind with the anionic or negatively charged cell, leads to the some kind of toxicity problems. So when you are using internally, when you are using orally, make sure that you are using a non-ionic surfactant like polysorbate 80 or this cleans and spans are basically the non-ionic surfactants. But if you are using an external, you can use both, either ionic or non-ionic, that is up to your demand. But when you are using through oral route, you should only use the non-ionic surfactants because they will cause some kind of toxicity issues. So the additives, just now we're discussing, like, that there are majorly there are three kinds of additives. One is the preservatives to prevent the microbial growth. Another one is antioxidants to prevent the acidity of oils. Another one is the humectants to prevent the loss of moisture to improve the delivery of the thing. So see, when they're writing the preparation methods or formulation, you should write both. Right? First, you have to explain the components. What is oil? What is the vehicle? It is there. What is the preservative? What is the excipients is there? All those things, their properties. Then you have to write wet gum and dry gum method. Okay, it doesn't mean that let us ask preparation methods of emulsions if you write directly, because nothing is there here to explain much. It will not even hardly come for one page. Okay, so if you first explain that, then you start explaining this. So coming to the preparation methods, so leave about the large scale methods. It's not going to have applicable. It's not in the syllabus. At least you can able to write the small scale methods which are already studied in the earlier classes. There is basically there are two kinds of methods called as wet gum method and dry gum method, based upon the gum which you are using in the emulsion preparation. Yesterday, you could recall back in the theories of emulsification, the multiple layer model we are using acacia gum, trachogantha gum. As I said there also, usually it's not only surfactants and emulsions which are using for the preparation of emulsions, we are also using the gums. So this method is about that wet gum and dry gum method. You are using as emulsifying agents. So what is the difference between these two is they are nothing but in this also oil is there, water is there, and the gum is there, which is an emulsifying agent. Everything is same. The main difference is first you are taking the gum and you are adding into the water and triturating it. Since you are adding into the water, water is the wet. That's why it is called as wet gum method. In the another method, you are once again taking the gum, you are adding into the oil, but not the water. That's why it is a dry. Dry sense nothing but it is you are adding into the oil, and you are adding the vice versa, and you are keeping it. And apart from this, the rest of the things are same, like what is the oil, water, gum you're using. And this is also called as the English method. This is also called as continental method. So all this remains going to be same. But usually where you are adding, that makes the definition of the emulsion preparation is changing, right? So if you could recall back, as it is time is getting over, we have seen the definitions of the emulsion, and we have seen the classification of the emulsions, and we have seen the preparation of the formulation methods of emulsions. So tomorrow's class, we will see the rest of the topics which is related to the emulsions.